Okay, we are live here at the Queensland Mining Expo for day 2, and this morning we've got TK from CATO Networks on the call. Morning, TK.
Morning, Tom. How are you going?
Good. So TK is the Sales Engineering Director over at CATO Networks, and CATO Networks are well, I'm going to let TK go into a bit more detail, but essentially a secure networking provider. So we call it SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, which sort of builds upon that SD-WAN technology. That's the best way I can describe it. But over to you, TK, and give us a bit of background on yourself and the CATO story.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. And look, good morning, everybody. Look, thanks for the opportunity. So as Tom briefly introduced, my name's Tan Kong. So most people call me TK. I lead the sales engineering organization for APJ in CATO Networks. And today, what I want to do is I want to spend about 20 minutes talking to everybody about how CATO SASE, so Tom's already described SASE, Secure Access Service Edge. That's a term that's actually coined by Gartner back in 2019. Basically describes a solution that converges both network and security and delivers this holistically via the cloud. So today what I wanted to talk about was how CATO SASE can help provide holistic threat prevention for the mining sector.
Okay,
so
excellent.
Yep. Okay, to continue, Tom?
Yeah, keep going.
Fantastic. So before we look at how we can do this, I just wanted to first understand the problem. Okay, so you can see on the screen there, I've got logos of 2 very big mining giants. So unfortunately, they were in the headlines for all the wrong reasons last year, that they were hacked. Okay, so let's start with Rio Tinto. So this was back in March of last year, and it's been dubbed by some of the industry experts as one of the largest cyber attacks on the mining industry. This was the hacker group that was responsible was a group called CLOP, spelled CL0P. And what the hackers did is they leaked employees' family information onto the dark web, as well as a whole bunch of company data, including payroll, payslips, etc., things like that. The stolen data was a result of an attack on a third-party piece of software called Go Anywhere. Okay, and this software is used for file transfer. It's used more than by Rio Tinto, and we'll talk about that later. Now, the way the hackers got in, they exploited a 0-day vulnerability in the software. And this is how they got in, right? So the other one is Fortescue Metals. They too were also hacked by the same group in the same year, a few months later, towards the end of May. But fortunately for FMG, the data that was stolen was not confidential in nature. Okay, so this is just 2 very quick examples of what hackers are looking for, for the mining networks. Now,
and just a question there, TK. Yeah. Do you know, were they targeted sort of attacks, or was it those sort of ones where it's a little bit more opportunistic that something happened within the network from a user perspective, or?
Yeah, so CLOP, the group, have come out and said it's purely for financial gain, right? Yeah, so okay. They saw an opportunity, they saw vulnerability in the software. There was a patch that was released for the software, but the issue there was time, right? The time it took to obviously take that patch and then apply it. And the gap in between those was when the hackers took advantage of that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and that's another thing I'll talk about, right? Is really that time to patch and how important that really is. So, stepping back to it, why are bad actors interested in hacking mining organizations? I mean, what's driving these threats? So let me just move the slides ahead. Well, it all begins with what actually influences the mining sector's market impact. We're in the age of automated vehicles, advanced remote monitoring systems, data analytics tools, but it still revolves around the business drivers, so such as improving operational efficiency, improving safety standards, improving productivity, and obviously reducing overall costs. Now, all of this is delivered via technology enablers such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation, and OT and IoT type technology. These things all provide unprecedented levels of insights to help us deliver upon those business drivers that I mentioned above. So with these benefits, it's very easy to understand why not just mining organizations, but a lot of organizations are going down the digital transformation journey. But there's a big but here, right? All this sounds really fantastic from a business growth and optimization point of view, but these additional touch points and technology advancements, they pose a significant risk. and they dramatically increase the attack surface for bad actors to compromise and exploit. And as you saw, the opening slide is a very good example of this, right? So when I talk about threats, I'm talking about theft of proprietary data. So more specific to the mining industry would be things like exploratory data, geology surveys, and things like that. Customer PII, of course, as in the case of Rio Tinto and FMG. Ransomware attacks, brand reputation damage, which of course leads to legal ramifications, disruption to mining operations, but the worst case, complete shutdown of mining operations. Okay.
Which unfortunately we even saw this week, although it wasn't an attack, but we've seen what a complete shutdown to an IT system can do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
that was not a hack, which is the interesting
It wasn't
part.
a hack, but yeah, but it was but it sort of provides that, I guess, that insight that no one, I guess, expected of what reliance we do have on technology today.
100%, Tom. 100%. So what are the gaps and how can we close them? Well, there's three main areas I want to talk about. And the first one is ineffective access controls. So most mining organizations maintain a complex maze of supply chain partners, third-party contractors, temporary employees, different IT and software providers, and of course, employees who come and go, right? They've either left or they've been fired. And managing and maintaining the appropriate levels of access often proves challenging. So ineffective access control policies are often the root cause of many a cyber attack. Now, the next one is lack of threat visibility. I'm sure we've all heard of the saying, you can't protect what you can't see, you don't know what you don't know. This is where visibility and contextual awareness are so critical for protecting day-to-day operations. And it's this lack of insight into threats that's crippling the industry today. There's too many interconnected systems with different varying levels of security, mixed match security tools, basically creates a visibility nightmare for the IT admin, right? So lean IT teams that are responsible for endpoints, security, network configuration, we really need to bring it back and make it simple. The third one is slow response to threats. So some of your networks and data, I mean, I hate to say it, but they're already under attack as we speak. You just don't know it. So these attacks, they may not be obvious. There's malware inside your network. It's lurking, it's watching, it's moving laterally from system to system slowly, staying undetected, and it's gathering information in preparation for the final big attack. Now,
we've seen the stats, haven't they? That the 6 months is roughly the time frame that the attackers are in there.
Exactly, the dwell time. So
yeah,
there's a backdoor created by the hackers. During this time, they're gathering information, they're escalating their privileges, they're moving from host to host undetected. It's a really scary thought, right? And so the inability to quickly detect and respond to these attacks, this is really killing your environment and putting your data at risk. So what can we do about this? What is required to close those gaps that I just mentioned? So imagine for a sec, what if you could provide a universally identity, let me start again. What if you could provide universal identity-based access control to critical applications, sensitive data, and only allow authorized access regardless of location or device? So it doesn't matter where the user is, doesn't matter what device they come in on. So this is the principle of zero trust network access. I'm sure some of you have heard it, the acronym ZTNA. And the whole point of ZTNA is it doesn't matter where you're working from. It could be, away from the office, which is what the traditional mindset, thinks about. He's working away from the office, therefore we have to bolster security. No, ZTNA applies the same principles whether that same user is inside the office, outside the office, at a cafe, at an airport. It doesn't matter. We apply the same security principles to that user. Next, what if you could bolster this universal access control with advanced threat intelligence? And then use AI-driven threat prevention for all users, applications, and data. So this function is absolutely critical in preventing 99% of the bad things from getting into your organizations in the first place. Okay, so a very comprehensive threat prevention solution. Now, lastly, what if that 1% gets into your network and that you don't know about, right? So it's made its way into your organization. What if you could reduce the time it takes to not only identify, but also eradicate that threat to your business? So that dwell time that Tom just mentioned, what if you could drastically reduce that to days or even hours? So both threat prevention, number 2, and threat detection are a must when it comes to choosing a comprehensive security solution to address these cybersecurity threats. So I see this as the three main building blocks that's required to protect today's digitized mining operations. Right. So let's get to talk about how CATO can help with this. Now, everything that I've talked about so far, this is possible with a SASE-based architecture. So now, Tom touched upon this very briefly at the start. SASE is an acronym that was created by Gartner in 2019, July 2019 to be exact. And it stands for Secure Access Service Edge. So it's a new architecture. It's a framework that basically talks about a solution that converges both network and security and delivers this via cloud scale, single context globally. Okay, so securing mining networks comes down to one thing: context. Context is key. So let me explain. Okay, let's begin with the edge. You can see in the diagram there, we've got multiple devices connected. This could be anything: IT devices, OT devices, IoT devices. It doesn't matter. As long as we see the traffic flow, as long as we can extract the context, that's all that matters. So if we begin at the edge, it doesn't matter if the edge is a branch user, a remote user, a data center or cloud connected server, like I said, or even an IoT device. The idea is we take the flow data from that device and we harvest as much contextual data as we can. Okay, so when I talk about contextual data, I'm talking about metadata such as user identity. Who is that user? Device posture. Is that device compliant with corporate policy, or is it a BYOD device? Device identity. What is that device? Is it a laptop? If it's a laptop, what's the operating system? If it's not a laptop, is it a smart fridge? Is it a controller? Is it, what is it? Is it an IoT OT device? We need to know those things. Geographical location. We can set policy to control certain access if this device is coming in from obviously within Australia. Outside of Australia, it gets a different policy. Okay, that's another parameter we can choose.
Application, even a known network, a known internal network, and things like that. Yeah,
exactly. Trusted versus untrusted, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, the more context we have, the more informed and accurate our access and security decisions will be. This is what we call adaptive access control. So with this capability, we can immediately reduce the attack surface, okay, straight away. The second one is the data lake. You can see in the top right corner there. So all the context data that we've gathered, that we harvested from the edge, we send it, we store it into a single centralized data lake for ease of AI training. Okay, so this enables our AI algorithms to further enhance the security data. And we can do this in unlimited ways because it is cloud scaled, it is AI driven. And this allows us to do AI threat prevention at each of the upstream pops, so that green T-shaped in the middle of the screen there. So this is a point of presence. This is where the full security stack deployment lives. This is where the AI-driven threat prevention engines live as well. And they leverage that enriched security data, which I talked about before, which comes from the data lake. Okay, so it's all a very cohesive system. Now, if we zoom out and we apply this capability across all the pops. So I talked about one pop before, but if we apply this to all the pops, and CATO has about 90 pops globally, okay, today, we now have a global platform with complete visibility, full context of every user, every device, what's it trying to do, where is it trying to come from, and full awareness of all the traffic from all edges. Okay, so this platform is now able to enforce consistent security policy for any user, any device, any application, no matter where it's connected. That device can move from site to site, even to different countries, but we will enforce a consistent security policy for that device, for that user, because of the single context that I talked about. This is the architecture that is required to deliver AI-driven threat prevention to protect your organization from unknown zero-day threats in real time.
Yep.
So that's threat prevention. If you remember, the last box I talked about was threat detection. What happens if something gets inside your network? How do you find it? Well, this is where accelerated threat detection and response comes into play. And this is delivered by CATO using SASE-based XDR. So for those familiar with XDR, it's typically security focused. With SASE-based XDR, it's both network and security focused, because SASE is a convergence of both those technologies. And
so when we traditionally talk XDR, we're talking endpoint generally, aren't we?
Well, that's EDR, Tom. XDR.
Oh, EDR, sorry. Yep.
Yeah. XDR pulls in signals and events and logs from the firewall, from the CASB, from the IPS. So it's a more holistic view of the network, right?
Yep, perfect.
So from a threat hunting anomalies detection point of view, The SASE cloud includes native XDR functionality. So this is baked into the actual CATO solution. And when I talk about hunting threats, we're talking about identifying suspicious behaviors and attackers roaming the network, moving laterally towards their targets. So that use case or scenario I talked about before, where you've got some bad things in your network and they're moving undetected, right? Because they know what triggers alerts, typical traditional security alerts. So they go undetected. Anomaly detection. This looks at behaviors of users and devices, right? So we identify unusual traffic patterns that may indicate malicious behaviors. So for example, we baseline user behavior. User X comes in every day, certain time, he logs on to a certain SaaS application. This is how much traffic he uses on a daily basis. We average that out. But this one particular day, he comes in a little bit earlier and he's uploading or he's downloading massive amounts of traffic. That is a suspicious user behavior, and we'll flag that in the form of a proactive XDR story. Okay,
and that's part of that AI-driven detection, isn't it?
Exactly, because we train those engines to look at behaviors, and there's a pattern, right?
Yeah. So every time a user's connecting, it's capturing that sort of statistical information about their usage and things like that. And then as soon as that changes, there's an alert.
Exactly. This is in addition to the context information I talked about before, right? From a threat prevention.
Yep. Because we've captured all that during that connection process. We know that it's a Windows device and he's generally in the Brisbane office and he's connecting to that. But suddenly today he's connected at 3 a.m. and he's in Russia.
Exactly. That's
another
we
probably would have blocked that connection anyway.
Yeah. That's impossible travel, right? Where you've got a user who's logged into Sydney at, let's say 8 a.m. this morning, and then we see that same user pop up in Russia at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. That's impossible travel. There's no way that's going to happen, right? And so we'll block that.
Yep.
And AI generated XDR stories. So these stories are generative AI driven, and this provides a roadmap for SOC teams, so security operations teams, to help accelerate remediation. So if we can make a story human readable, this dramatically helps us as humans to understand the problem and quickly come up with a solution to fix it, right? So the story types I'm talking about that we generate as part of XDR: threat prevention, threat hunting, and anomalies. These are all proactive stories generated by XDR. And of course, the beauty of our XDR lies within a rich data, which I've already talked about in the data lake, and how we use AI and ML to train on this data. Okay, so I'm going to put all the pieces together now and overlay this across the CATO backbone. So we'll start off with connectivity. So we have different physical boxes. We call them sockets. They're our edge SD-WAN appliance. We have different form factors of this to cater for different branch sites, bandwidths, users, all those things. But ultimately, these are the boxes. This is your edge device, WAN edge device that connects, whether it be IT devices, laptop servers, or IoT devices, right? We can identify, we can classify, and we can categorize what these devices are.
And that's essentially your traditional, what we would see as a firewall deployed in your office.
Exactly.
So the alternative solution.
Yep. Yeah. So this box replaces the traditional on-prem firewall.
Yep.
From an endpoint point of view, so we have a CATO client. It's a small agent that is installed on endpoint. You can see that on all the operating systems that we support on any endpoint. This provides a zero trust network access. So it identifies the user, identifies the device, and whether the device is compliant with corporate policy or is it a BYOD device. It's always on, which means the end user can't turn it off. And so therefore, as soon as they step outside the office, as soon as they connect to the internet, they're protected by CATO Cloud. There is another option of client-less. That's for the use case of a third-party contractor. And I assume this is obviously very common in the mining world, where you've got contractors who come in to do one thing and one thing only. They need to access your network. They need to access your data. And so the way the clientless works, it's an extension to the browser, and they'll come in based on authentication. You create an account for them, and they come in, and we provide strict ZTNA access control based on who they are and what they can and can't do. So in other words, they come in for one thing and one thing only and nothing else. Right?
That's it. They log into the web page and can then access this one application or one service.
Yep. And once their contract's up, you just, obviously using Azure or whatever IDP you use, you disable their account.
Yep.
Connecting cloud. So this is the infrastructure as a service type cloud I'm talking about here. So the Amazons, your Azure, your Google Clouds, Oracle, whatever it is, they connect in via a secure tunnel. The box that I talked about before, the socket, we have a virtual form factor of that just lives as a virtual machine inside and ties all those virtual VNets, VPCs together to connect into CATO Cloud. So the connectivity model, the architecture is exactly the same, whether you're a physical site or a virtual cloud site. It's exactly the same with the same controls, same visibilities. And lastly, the left-hand side is the SaaS apps, right? The O365s, your SAP HANAs, or the mining applications that, the SaaS apps the mining organization uses. We have an ability to optimize those connections, secure those connections, because we can build policies to send that traffic across our backbone as opposed to using the public internet. Okay, so there's a lot of capabilities here for all the different flavors of cloud, whether it be infrastructure as a service or SaaS. And lastly, the services that sit on top of that, which I've talked about for the last 20 minutes, all those security engines at every single one of the POPs. You've got the data which we collect, we store in the data lake. We run the AI ML engines on top of that, and this makes up for our XDR capability, which we provide visibility from a network and security point of view. And of course, a single pane of glass to manage everything that I've talked about before, whether it be network, security, authentication, remote access users, visibility, XDR, all those things.
One admin console that that contains everything.
Absolutely. Yep. So our advanced threat prevention is everywhere. I did mention 90 POPs. So they're everywhere where your operations are to ensure your protection is available when you need it. So with our global reach and coverage in all the major markets, we're perfectly suited to protecting mining organizations that have operations distributed globally. And we turn up about 3 or 4 POPs every single quarter. Okay, so we're still very much in growth mode. And the POPs that we choose, the markets that we choose, is purely driven by customer demand.
Yep.
So last slide. And basically, the beauty of the CATO SASE Cloud platform is with universal ZTNA, AI-driven threat prevention, and a holistic approach to threat prevention. So we have a 360-degree view of potential threats. We can quickly, dynamically adapt to protect these threats with minimal effort or an impact to user experience. And so just going down those bullet points. So real-time threat prevention, we can block malicious traffic behaviors. AI-driven threat hunting, anomaly detection. If something's inside your network, we can quickly identify and eradicate that threat. Automated threat response. XDR stories, I talked about before, network and security proactive stories. Guidance for remediating threats. We have playbooks for your SOC teams, or if there is no SOC capability, we have a managed capability, right, to run that XDR service. And that's it, Tom.
Wonderful. That's great. Thanks, TK. I think
thank you very much.
one question that comes up a bit when we're talking about the CATO offering is one of the key differentiators that, just to get clarity from you, is that when we put a socket in or we put an agent on a device, we're actually encapsulating all that traffic over the CATO backbone, aren't we? None of that traffic traverses the public internet once we go down this path.
100% correct. 100% correct. So the job of the socket is to take all the traffic from that site. So that's your edge device. You'll connect your switches, you'll connect your printers, servers, whatever it is you have on-prem. All that traffic goes via the socket and up to the CATO cloud via an encrypted tunnel. Same thing with the agent, right? Everything comes from your laptop to the CATO POP in a encrypted
to the
tunnel.
CATO cloud. And that's exactly how you get that cloud scale policy deployment and centralized security. So, I mean, we use it internally. So regardless of where we turn up on our laptops, we know that our centralized firewall policy is in place, our content controls in place, and all the traffic running across that particular laptop's connection is secured. When we go back into the office, we're sitting behind a socket. So any device in that network is now protected because it's traversing all those rules and all that protection.
Absolutely correct.
Yep.
Perfect.
And then as clients add additional sites, they essentially add another socket, add a virtual connection, whether it's in cloud, and now that traffic is all connected, and we can create rules then to manage the connectivity between sites and where people are accessing.
That's right. There's no configuration of routing or anything, like you said, Tom. You add a site, that site is now fully meshed with the other sites. They can talk to each other, provided the security policy allows it.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, that's great. And then I guess the other element that we've seen and had a few questions about as well, which I'll just get and probably just more clarify, is that even your remote users, I think it's important that we are providing a level of protection for them, because we don't necessarily know where they're going to turn up. And then what is happening on those machines, because they could be at home, they could be on a client site, they could be out in a regional center, in a mine site somewhere. That agent that sits on that machine, as soon as it gets an internet connection, the agent kicks in and tunnels all that traffic back through the secure policies.
Absolutely correct. And
Yep.
if there is let's say there's the scenario where that machine is compromised somehow, and there's malware sitting on that machine trying to move its way into the organization, the first point of blockage is going to be the upstream POP. The POP will detect its compromise and isolate and quarantine that machine.
Yep. Excellent. Yeah. So that protects against those things. If they've grabbed a USB or done something like that, stuck it in the machine, okay,
Yep.
well, that machine may get compromised, but we can now see that, isolate it, and protect it. Yeah, protect the rest of the network.
And you actually raised a good point, Tom. I didn't even mention endpoint protection. That's also part of the CATO product suite. So to prevent that USB scenario, that's the job of the EPP, the endpoint protection software. Yep.
Again, all part of that centralized control and visibility as it scales.
Correct.
Yeah, wonderful. That's great. TK, that's been really good, and I think there's a lot of value to be had in that throughout, and particularly when we're up here in Mackay, and it's I guess it's not a Brisbane, it's not a Sydney, but these solutions still very, very applicable in these environments where you've got mobile users, even regional and remote staff. Doesn't matter what internet link you've got, we can put CATO in there to start protecting the traffic that's running across that, whether it's a Starlink, an NBN, a fiber. It doesn't matter what we've got. We can leverage that CATO LTE. We've got LTE devices in CATO to allow us to get that connectivity regardless and quickly as well. So I think the LTE plays a big part of that, where we can stand up sites very, very fast into the overall network.
That's exactly right. And the key word there is quickly and secure, right? So if you need something turned up really quickly and securely, like that we have solutions for that.
Yep. Wonderful. TK, that's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for that. And I'm sure there's a lot of value in here. And as questions come in, post your questions, ask your questions. We'll sort of put a response together and get back to you.
Excellent. Thanks for the opportunity again, Tom.
Thanks, TK. My pleasure. Cheers.